Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City of West Bend Common Council meeting for September 12th. I will note that due to a malfunction with our posting, our agendas for licensing and finance will be pushed to our next regular meeting. So with that, I'll call this meeting to order. Please join me to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll note that we have 6 items on our agenda. The first being approval of the minutes, the Common Council regular meeting minutes from August 15th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Model and Allen. Any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And first up, we have our presentations. Presentation of the Mayor's 2022 Beautification Award. So I will start this off, that we have the joy and splendor of honoring our residents every year with this Beautification Award. I've been honored to get to both serve as a judge and then congratulate some of our winners over the past couple of years as well. I've seen all of your homes. They're absolutely beautiful. You guys definitely go above and beyond to beautify our great city. So with those words, I'll kick it over to Mike Faulkner with Roots and Branches, who will present all of our winners. Take it away, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. I am Mike Faulkner. I'm a board member of Roots and Branches and the chair for the Mayor's Beautification Award and the Business Beautification Award. And it's always my pleasure on this evening to present these awards to our residents from the city and business people from the city of West Bend. They do a wonderful job. Their homes look great. And it's awesome to be able to get around and see all of the different work that people do. I'd like to thank the judges, many of them are here this evening as well, who put in a lot of time going around in their district to all of the various streets within their district and looking at all the homes. So I thank them for all the time they put in as well. I'd like to thank Mayor Jenkins. It's the Mayor's Beautification Award. His title is on it, but he has gone above and beyond since he's mayor with this particular venture. Him and his wife are one of our judges, and we go around each year at the end, and when we put the signs up, Mayor Jenkins always goes along and present the sign. It's always a fun evening to go around and see all of the winners. So I thank you, Mayor, for your extra work that you've done within for our organization as well. So with that being said, what I'd like to do is introduce each of the district winners. As I introduce them, if you would please come down to the side over here, and the aldermen have your plaques. So if each alderman as your district comes down, if you would please come down here and present their plaque to them, and Jess will take your picture, and I guess away we go. So District 1 is Laura and Chris Miller, and living on Decker Drive, and Mayor, another promotion, John. Alderman John Butchlick. District 2 is Kate Walter on Hickory Street. Alderman Mark Allen. District 3, Jeff and Mary Olson on Hawthorne Drive. Alderman Brett Bergquist. District 4, Bob and Karen Nija. Alderman Randy Koehler. Our District 5 winner was Dean Sullick, who is not able to be here this evening, and Alderman is Jed Dolnick. And District 6 is also not able to be here tonight. Jerry Lynn Arndt on Annie Street, Alderwoman Tracy Ahrens. District 7, Diane Brendel on North Main Street, Alderman Justice Model. And District 8, Lisa and Eric Eichlein on Marshall Court, Alderman Aaron Zingsheim. We also have our Business Beautification Awards to present this evening, and we started doing this a couple years back. And the way it works with our Roots and Branches group is the city is divided into 3 areas. One of them is the Historical Barton Business Association area. The second one is the BID Brd District. And then the third one is the at-large, so the rest of West Bend. So, and it works the same way. Judges go around, or there's nominations, and these businesses are chosen based on the work that their owners have done to make their place look beautiful. The at-large recipient is Omicron. And Amy Johnson, our executive director, will present those. Omicron is not here this evening. The Historical Barton Business Association District, the presentation will go to Barton Garton, and Justice will receive that as the president of the Historical Barton Business Association. Like I had said earlier, if you haven't seen this new addition to the city of West Bend up in the Barton area, you should take a ride up there. It's a beautiful addition to the city. And the BID Brd recipient goes to a conversation piece, beautiful business owned by Alicia and Mary. They would come up, please. Again, I thank the council for allowing us the time to present these this evening, and I appreciate the time, and thank you for all of you who showed up into the little reception area earlier. Appreciate your time. So thank you for all you do for the city of West Bend. Mayor, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Roots and Branches. Thank you to all the volunteers and everybody who makes this happen every year. Thanks so much. I would welcome all of our guests to stick around if you would like. We're going to have an exciting presentation, I'm sure. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Amy's got to know. Yep.
I just scribbled over.
All right, so we are on the consent agenda, which we have no items because those were all from the agendas that we're going to be taking care of in a couple of weeks here. So we'll move on to our agenda items for consideration, which is number 4, the state of the county, presented by our county executive, Josh Schoemann. Let's welcome him. Welcome, Mr. County Exec. Still got a few people in the audience.
Yeah, bring the sheriff along. He scares everybody away. Well, thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you tonight. And I'm sure you've read plenty about the Washington County Anti-Crime Plan and the upcoming referendum on the November 8th ballot. And I know you considered doing something similar yourselves and decided against it. So you've certainly wrestled with these same types of struggles. But let me just walk you through a little bit of kind of where we are today, why we are here today, what brought us to this point, and I'll let the sheriff speak to some of the more particulars of the crime plan itself. But let me just go back for the last 9 years to my tenure with the county. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody sitting up there or anybody watching tonight to hear me talk about Washington County as reducing the size of government in every metric you could think ever since I've been at the county. And frankly, long before that, county government in Washington County has always been extraordinarily conservative, maybe even sometimes a little cheap, no doubt. But that has been the record of many people before me and myself as well. We've reduced the size of county government in every metric possible that you could think of. But one of the things that we have been talking about for the past 5 years was the staffing needs in the sheriff's office. Probably similar to yourselves and most local governments across the state of Wisconsin, public safety and law enforcement, just generally speaking, has been one of those areas where year after year the tax levy goes up, while in many other areas across the budget may go down or may be held flat if those departments are lucky. It's no different here. And in the sheriff's department, dating back to 2016, we've been having the conversation about we really not only we've been increasing, but we really haven't added staff or added to staffing minimums in many years. And so what ought we do? What should staffing look like? This dates back to 2016 when the county added, while I was county administrator, added to our strategic priorities discussion an item to actually do a staffing analysis. At the time, Sheriff Schmidt in 2017 came back in his annual report, had a nice long explanation of his thoughts, and concluded by saying exactly that. We need more staff in every area of the sheriff's office, and we should commence soon. He, of course, didn't run for re-election in 2018. Sheriff Schulteis ran for election at that time, and so we had a change in the sheriff. Believe it or not, we had a change in the county board chair, and then shortly after that, we had another change in the county board chair. And my office changed, of course, from county administrator to county executive. So there's been a lot of change. What hasn't changed is the need for a staffing analysis in the sheriff's office. And what really prompted a conversation between the sheriff and I during my tenure as county executive were a number of incidents that have happened across the county. A few just in general, some that you are probably familiar with. One, an active shooter situation with a real active shooter that sadly ended in the execution of two individuals, one I believe in the town of Farmington, and if memory serves, one in the town of Kewaskum, in their homes, and ultimately led to a situation where a deputy took the life of the individual that was carrying out those awful crimes. There were several in between, but the one that proverbially broke the straw that broke the camel's back was in Slinger Middle School. Many of you probably heard of this earlier this year. In May of this year, there was an active shooter threat there as well. Fortunately, it turned out to be a hoax, but it was enough of an incident that once again the sheriff and I sat down, as we do for breakfast about once a month, and had an after-action review and really concluded it's long past time for us to do that staffing analysis that we've been talking about at this point for almost 5 years. Let's get pen to paper and what do you actually need? And that's what he did. What you hear about throughout the next couple of months, but we wanted to present to you specifically as elected leaders, is the sheriff's staffing. What we're calling the Washington County Anti-Crime Plan includes 30.5 positions, $3.6 million. It's quite the opposite of everything that I started the discussion with, and quite the opposite of everything that has happened while I've been county executive in terms of spending and staffing. There's no argument that it's growing staff. There's no argument that it's growing levy. It's all of those things. And frankly, it matches what we're seeing as growing crime in the area, really not so much in Washington County, but everywhere around us. And that's reflected in the number of folks that are in our jail. Started in 2017. You could read it in the Sheriff Schmidt's annual report that the number of folks in our jail in 2014 was about 14% from Milwaukee County zip codes. Today, it's almost 25%. If it weren't for out of county, the population of our jail would actually be declining. But the majority of our jail population, over 50%, is from out of county. So if you do the math, that means another 25%, over a little bit more than that actually, is from counties other than Milwaukee County. So what we're seeing is the impacts of crime, not so much from Washington County, which, as I mentioned, would be declining, but from others around us. So what it leaves us with is a real values conflict. I think no one would doubt and no one would disagree that Washington County in general is very much a conservative, smaller government, lower taxes at every turn where we can, with few exceptions. But a safe and secure community, when we do have to do government stuff, is at the top of the list. And so this is really one of those moments in time where we have a values conflict. So the question came down to, once the sheriff and his staff put together the Washington County Anti-Crime Plan, how do we fund it? And I ran as county executive on a platform of living within our means. And a $3.6 million increase in expenditures is no doubt not within our means. We have levy authority to go up about $1.2, $1.3 million. I know you're all familiar with net new construction and tax levy limits and the ability to borrow money to create more levy. We certainly could borrow money. I don't think it's a good idea to go down that path unless we need to, because once you start, you never stop. But we could do the 1.2 million. What we can't do is anything more than that. Since it's so much opposite of what we've normally done, and since it's definitely living outside of our means, I felt strongly that the people of Washington County should make the decision. There were certainly people on the county board that felt differently, that felt like they should just take that decision into their own hands. But as you and I know, or I assume you know, borrowing money is not something that I think is a good solution, even if it's to move money over to operating, and therefore I think the people of Washington County should make this decision. Finally, when all is said and done, this really boils down to a community conversation about that values conflict. I hope that over the next 60 days, and we are now officially under 60 days until November 8th, soon enough, thank God, all of those commercials will be done. But I hope that one message is loud and clear coming out of this community conversation. Whether you're for the referendum passing or you're against it, I hope people outside of the boundaries of this county and inside of the boundaries of this county know, if you intend to commit crime, don't come here. Don't come through here. You will be arrested. You'll be charged to the full extent of the law. You'll be prosecuted, and you'll be sentenced to the full extent of the law. And that's what Washington County is really all about. There are issues that need to be taken up with the district attorney's office, conversations that the sheriff and I have had. There are conversations that need to happen with our judges. There are 2 elections on the April ballot that we will certainly all as a community have much more conversation about. We can't address those today, but we can in April. But at the end of the day, I hope that message is loud and clear within Washington County and well outside of the bounds. So I'd like to give the sheriff, with your permission, Mr. Mayor, an opportunity to explain some of the staffing needs and why he feels this Washington County Anti-Crime Plan is the right solution.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. What I thought I'd do is kind of break it down, and I'll try to be brief, into 2 areas. The number one, as elected group, you're probably wondering what the data is that drives these decisions. It was 30 positions and $3.6 million. So I want to talk about that. But then also specifically, if I was in your chair, I would be wondering, what's in it for me? What does the city get out of this? That's a very valid question for elected officials in this body to ask. So first off, the data driving the decision. is oftentimes, and I'm not sure if the city of West Bend, the police department has done manpower studies before, but they're based on several different models. There's a minimum manpower model, there's a per capita model, there's just the budget money, how much money do you have and what can you do with it. There is a workload model, and what we really kind of did is we kind of integrated a lot of those into the different areas of our operations. The minimum manpower model is probably one of the most telling ones for us. What I did is across our divisions, I asked our captains to tell me what you believe is our minimum staffing that we should have in this. I'll primarily speak about the road operations. That's what most people are concerned about. How many boots on the ground do we have to have out on the road at any given time to provide the services that the community expects? And so what we've been operating under, and I tell the groups that I talk in front of, I'm very hesitant to talk about our minimum staffing levels just because I think there's a belief that there's a lot more cops out on the road than what there truly are, and I'm sure it's the same in the city of West Bend. But our minimum staffing on at least first and third shifts have not changed since at least the late 1980s. And the county has grown 60% in that time in population. There's double the amount of homes in that time. And if you can envision the county being broken up into thirds, so anything north of Highway 33 is one area, from county line to county line. Between Highway 33 and Highway 60 is another area, and then anything south of Highway 60. Each one of those patrol areas is 144 square miles, although understanding that there's municipalities in there as well. In 1989, we had 5 deputies out on patrol, so there'd be 1 deputy in each one of those areas as a minimum staffing. And then there'd be a north half car, which would be anything from double N to the north, and anything from double N to the south is a south half. So we'd have those 5 areas. To give you a good example, the day of the 4th of July this year, that's the staffing that we were working with because our staffing minimums have not changed. Under this referendum, what we're proposing is to increase our staffing minimums to 8, 8, and 7. And it comes up, so there is a total of 18 patrol-oriented positions, I should say operations positions. And when you're dealing with a 24/7 operation, 3 shifts, I mean, it takes bodies to fill those slots. So the other aspect of it is a per capita ratio, and that to me, I'm not a statistics type guy, but that is very telling to me. The national average for law enforcement per 1,000 residents, and I think it's a tad high, but it's currently at 2.4 officers per 1,000 residents. What I can tell you is that right now, the sheriff's office is at 1.5 for per 1,000 residents. And I'm only talking about the residents in our primary jurisdiction, so I'm subtracting like the cities of West Bend and Hartford and all those out. It's only areas that are not served by a full-time police department. Where that places us is dead at the bottom. There's not another full-time law enforcement agency in Washington County that has a lower per capita rate. If this referendum were to pass, what it does, it brings us up to the dead middle. It brings us up to 1.8 officers per 1,000. So there'd be 3 agencies with a higher staffing levels, 3 agencies with a lower staffing model. And we kind of thought that was a kind of a good area for us to be in. There is the workload model that we looked at, and if you look at everything that affects our minimum staffing levels. We have a SWAT team that's about 2,200 hours of training and call-outs, mostly training that takes place per year. We have an accident recon team that's about 1,000 hours. We have a dive team that's about another 1,000 hours. So all of those things take away from our minimum staffing levels. And courthouse security is another example where we have 4 full-time deputies in there. That takes away from the minimum staffing we can put out on the road. and I'm sure the chief and the captain are here. The crime trends in Washington County they're not skyrocketing. I don't want to put the fear tactics into anyone and say that crime is rampant and out of control, but there are certain trends that are concerning to a head law enforcement agency. We have, and the county executive kind of spoke to it about the crime that's bleeding into Washington County. That is, in fact, that is occurring. All of the high-tech internet crimes are skyrocketing, the internet frauds and sexting and child porn investigations. Any overdose death, I just asked our staff to come up with some numbers about how much time is put into any overdose death, and it's anywhere from 300 to 1,000 plus hours till completion. That crime bleeding over into Washington County, one of the things is the drug overdoses that's plaguing every municipality here. In 2019, we had 12 overdose deaths. This year, we're at 26 right now. That includes countywide, including the city of West Bend. Those are very, very troubling statistics. So as far as what's in it for the city of West Bend, and how does this referendum impact your taxpayers? So the first thing what I'll say is that the last time I was actually standing at this podium, I was talking about the two candidates for chief of police and how well the sheriff's office and the city police department work together. That continues to be true. We back each other up all the time. We help out with investigations. During any critical incident, I think the exact words I said here is that we're both big departments, but we're not big in terms of what we can handle as far as a critical incident. Any critical incident that happens out in the county, I'm going to be asking for help from the city of West Bend, and I'm assuming it's vice versa with the city police department. To give that per capita ratio, to put that into perspective, I also did the sheriff's office in southeastern Wisconsin because I think that's also a fair comparison. And there's only one sheriff's office in southeastern Wisconsin now that has a lower per capita, that's Fond du Lac. Every other sheriff's office in southeastern Wisconsin has a higher ratio than what that we have now. But what's also very telling is our neighbors right next door to us, Ozaukee County. So if you take their per capita ratio for the entire county, all the police departments, the sheriff's office, by their population, they're at 2.2 officers per 1,000 residents for all of Ozaukee County. On the flip side of that, Washington County is at 1.7. And so I think that over the years, we have just not kept up with the growth that we probably should have. We probably should have been doing this 10, 15, 20 years ago, but I guess I want to at least have the opportunity for the public to make that determination. The other thing that you should know is the jail staffing. We're increasing the shift minimums in two particular areas in the jail. We've had some tragedies in there that, in fact, the city of West Bend had to investigate for us on occasion. All of the county, all municipalities utilize the jail. In fact, the city of West Bend happens to utilize the jail more than any other municipality in the county. So there are several positions in the jail that would apply to. The other thing is we had applied for a federal earmark to embed social workers with deputies. And what that would mean is we had a model where we set up, and we actually ran a pilot for a while, where we had a deputy and a social worker together riding around, and they would immediately respond to any critical mental health calls to try to de-escalate that. And then when they are not responding, they're not being reactive, they would be proactive and dealing with the mental health clients that our human services knows is a problem, and they would do daily check-ins with them, just kind of check and see how they're doing. And the whole goal of that was to keep those individuals out of the system to begin with. So the proposal that we have right now is it's for 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, where we would have a deputy along with a social worker. And there's a upcoming police chiefs meeting where I want to kind of present to them that they would have as much or as little ability to use that team as they would like. I suspect, that the police departments will want us to respond to the scene as the intake that we normally. What happens is a police officer or deputy gets on scene, and they'll evaluate it. If there's some mental health issues that need to be addressed, they'll contact our ACS team, and it's a phone call. Sometimes they respond to the residents, sometimes they do a phone consult. And oftentimes, I think a bone of contention with law enforcement in Washington County is those phone consultations rather than having a face-to-face evaluation. And what I would certainly offer to the police departments throughout the county is that that social worker team would respond directly to the residents to do that face-to-face evaluation, and we would really minimize those phone consults. So that's kind of the Reader's Digest version of the reasoning behind it, the data behind it. But we're more than willing to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Open up to the council if anybody has any questions. Alderman Allen.
Yeah, Sheriff Schulteis, you mentioned that you were going to do this social worker, police, or sheriff's deputy team. Is there going to be one? Is it something that you staff 24/7? What's that look like?
Sure. So there will actually be 3 teams, 2 working a day for 8-hour shifts. So there's 16 hours of coverage right now. So, and when one team is off, the other team is on. There needs to be some accounting for some off time, so we're working that part out. But it's not designed as a 24/7. At this point, just because it's very hard to do the proactive type interventions at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I think I'm working with the Human Services to see how they want to staff that ACS call-in that they currently do during the evening hours.
And then one other question. I mean, when I look at my tax bill, there's a line item that says county, and what I mean, a chunk of the county budget is now to expand the sheriff's department budget, and that'll be a significant. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but it's it's a measurable amount of money. Cities and villages are already paying for a law enforcement presence. Is there any thought been given to taking the law enforcement part and throwing it out in the unincorporated portions of the towns?
I guess I'll let you.
Sure. Well, I'll try to answer a couple of those questions, and I might ask you for a little help on another portion, I think. First of all, the tax levy, this is a significant increase. It's a 9.9% increase, so it's a significant sum. Property values are increasing in Washington County, so the tax rate, even if the referendum passes, drops by 9 cents per thousand. And if it fails, it drops by 27 cents per thousand. Quick math, roughly median value of a home in Washington County, I'll just use a round number of $300,000. You're talking about a $27 per year decrease if it passes. You're talking about another $54 if it fails. So it's the difference, the net difference is $54 a year, so $1 a week. I think there's a couple of things that the sheriff mentioned that are worth alluding to for a city specifically. The jail is one of them, and he mentioned it, but mental health aspects of the jail are a humongous expense that are really built into the cost and the staffing model that the sheriff's office has, as well as the mental health component. Our ideal scenario, and other places across the country have done this, but the ideal scenario would be the mental health stuff works out very well, and we're able to add additional social workers to the team, and it looks much more like our SWAT team, which is jurisdictions from all throughout the county, plus social workers. But adding 1 or 2 or 3 social workers is not our problem. It's adding to every shift, patrol, plus the mental health team, plus the jail. So I think there's a couple of different wins that are direct for the municipalities, including the city of West Bend. There definitely will be a gain per se for towns who are more directly benefiting from the sheriff's office. That's inarguable. What the percentage breakdown is, that I couldn't speak to. But I do think it's worth noting how the current mental health programming works, and how that will compare to what the future state looks like, and potentially what that conversation with the chiefs looks like. I don't know if does that answer your question, Alderman Allen? Okay.
Anybody else to my right? Yes, sir.
I had a couple of questions for the county executive and the sheriff. For the sheriff, you don't have to argue with me or debate with me. I know that you need help on the road. You're literally correct. That hasn't changed since I worked there. And those same areas existed when I started there in 1977, for Pete's sakes. And those minimums, I think, looking back, I think we may have had a 4-person minimum back then. But in any event, you want 8, 8, and 7. I'll lead the parade. But what I don't understand, you're talking 30 and a half positions. 30 and a half positions isn't 8, 8, and 7. So you're diverting some of those for other purposes, I assume?
So there's a total of 15 sworn positions.
Yeah.
The 3 social workers. So that's the 15 that are kind of the sworn patrol operations. I'm counting the social workers in that. There is 9, I believe, correctional officers, and that's to staff those areas 24/7, 365. There is 1.5 communications officers in there. We tried to keep as much administrative stuff as we could out of the, because it's a public safety thing. But one of the things that we are going to quickly learn, and I think the city is going to quickly learn, is that we're implementing body cams in the coming next year, year and a half. And we have one person that's doing all of our discovery and open records, and it's clearly not going to be enough. So there's one administrative person for that, and then we have one other administrative person, I believe, for in the detective bureau as a criminal analyst, and that's to combat some of those help with those internet investigations where it literally takes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours to sift through a lot of the subpoenas and phone downloads.
There is a rumor on the street that this includes take-home squads.
That's not part of the referendum per se. That's a separate discussion with the CIP and sales tax money.
Okay.
And I could address that if you'd care. for me to-
No, that's okay. As long as it isn't part of the referendum.
It is not part of the
Yeah.
referendum.
Do you happen to know what the percentage of Milwaukee residents would be for the Waukesha County Jail?
That I do not. What I can tell you is that I spoke with the executive director from the National Sheriff's Association today, and I told him that over half of our inmates are not from Washington County, and he said that's exceptionally high. So I guess I can't tell you the breakdown for other counties, but he was blown away at that figure.
Because I was just thinking, Waukesha County has a reputation much harder than Washington County does for prosecutions. And so all things being equal, if reputation meant something, I would expect to see that they have fewer than 25% in their jail. So that would be interesting to know. For the county executive, I am confused. If your tax rate will go down, even with the referendum, how does this bump into levy limit territory that you need? Well, except let me go back, because this is not a binding referendum, right?
It is binding.
It is a binding.
Yes.
Is this predicated on bypassing the levy limit?
Yes.
Because I'm missing something. Even though your tax rate would be going down?
Yes. So simple math. Pardon me for if I'm being rude. Just tell me flat out. The tax levy divided by property value equals tax rate.
Sure.
So the tax rate can do just about anything the tax rate's going to do, and the levy can do what it's going to do. The levy, because the denominator, again, pardon me for being simplistic here, but because the denominator property value is skyrocketing, Washington County as a whole, I don't know what West Bend was, but Washington County as a whole, property value, equalized value grew 13.3%. That's the most we've seen since the 90s. We went back to 1996 and we couldn't find property value growing that fast. Because that's growing so fast, no matter what you do to the numerator, the levy, the tax rate's gonna drop.
Okay.
That's why you're seeing the tax rate go down, even though we're proposing almost a 10% increase in the levy. So it's everything. It's all the new hotels and things you have downtown. It's some of the new industrial stuff throughout the county. It's home values are just appreciating. My understanding is there's only been one reassessment in the county this current year, so it's not that. And my understanding also relative to this property value is there were no TIF districts that closed, so it's not that. It's just property values are going up like crazy. So the TIFs that closed are effective for next year. So long story short, it is a little bit of a head scratcher from a citizen's perspective, but the bottom line is, as a community, our prosperity is growing, our means collectively is growing, but the levies for the city, for the county, for any town, they're not growing. Net new construction for us was 1.8%. So there's no, and we've been withholding some of the dollars we're allowed to increase our levy. So the amount we're allowed is more like 3.5, I want to say. I'm going off memory now, which is dangerous, but it's 3 point something. This is significantly beyond that even, which is kind of the point. We could do a handful of the positions that you heard from in patrol, or maybe just the mental health piece, but we couldn't do a comprehensive response to the crime that we're seeing coming from other counties. It would just have to be a piecemeal. Does that answer your question?
I guess if you saw, I had a strange look, is when you referred to the crime from other counties, is that I frankly am not convinced that there's this anti-crime plan. You're conjuring up visions of hordes of people from Milwaukee coming up here, and I don't know that increasing your patrol staff is. There are issues and factors that go way beyond this. If that's the strategy that the county wants to use to sell this, to conjure up invading people from Milwaukee, that's up to the county. But from my background, is that I don't think that's the way I would have approached this, but that's up to you. I think there are some good logical reasons why you need for the public safety to increase patrol strength, but it's not because you had one tragic shooting up in the north part and you had one response to a gun hoax in the village of Slinger. That's a strategy that you want to use. Go ahead.
Alderman Ahrens?
I just want I just want to make sure I understand this right. There are 50% of the criminals in our jails are from other counties, and you said 25% of them are from Milwaukee. Now, are we housing people for other counties, or are they doing crimes here in Washington County?
There's a little bit of both. Our juvenile detention unit, we're only one of 6 or 7 in the state, so those we are housing juveniles from all over the state. But the numbers that we're referring to is our adult jail. Those are individuals that the city police department arrests, and when they're booked into the jail, they say they live in the city of Milwaukee or the city of Waukesha.
Which is why you can say that, it clearly is coming from other counties. And you can, there's simply anecdotes. Pick any anecdote you wish. There's an anecdote of a 85-year-old woman from Richfield whose home was invaded, and she was put at the edge of the stairs and told to tell them where all the money is and tell them where all the jewelry is. And you can use any anecdote you want, but the data is what it is. And we're over 50% for a lot of
Josh, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm getting yelled at that you need to move close to the microphone.
Oh. Okay.
Thanks.
That was a good interruption anyway.
It's all right. Any other questions for the county exec or sheriff? Going once, going twice. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thanks
you.
for coming and
Thank you all.
educating us and educating our community.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll move on to our reports. We have number 5, report by Alderman Koehler regarding the Park and Rec Commission meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Park and Rec Commission met on Thursday, August 18th, and we started our meeting with the annual Parks Tour. We toured the a possibility of a future park on Northwestern Avenue where we now store trees that have been removed from the city, and we're having some difficulty getting rid of that wood, so but we got to look at that site. There's some good potential there. We then stopped at Barton Park and did a quick walk around of that property, and then went to Glacial Blue Hills Rec Area where we toured a little bit around there and looked at some of the bike trails and what the Gears Foundation is doing out there. That's a great park if you haven't been out there. And then we visited the Riverwalk Phase 2 and 4 to see the progress, which is coming along very nicely. If you've been down by the old dam behind the new district, you'll see that that area is really starting to take shape. They've got pilings driven for the next section, so that's moving along well and looks really good. Then we went to the new beach house and got a little tour there and had our meeting there. Great addition to Regner Park. We discussed the pond committee recommendations and progress on hiring of lifeguards. Jess and her team and Mike and his team have all gotten together, and we've got a pretty good plan going. I've seen advertisements going out. I think they've got a really competitive wage structure with some potential for bonus. So my hope is come spring we'll be ready to roll and get that pond open again. So that's going well. And then we had an update on the Dirty Ninja Mud Run, which saw roughly 2,400 kids participate. I know many of you were down there. It was a great day. It was fun to see the kids. Another great event put on, and I know Mike and his staff put a ton of time into that, and everybody else within the city that kicked in, so great event. After that, we accepted donations, $1,250 from Delta Defense for sponsorship of the Mud Run, $1,250 from Killian Management for sponsorship of the Mud Run, $2,500 from the West Bend Mutual Insurance Charitable Fund for the Dirty Ninja Mud Run. Bank 5-9, $2,500 for the Dirty Ninja Mud Run. Rostero, $5,000 for the Dirty Ninja Mud Run. West Bend Friends of Park and Rec, $4,500, and 2,000 lunches served to the Hungry Ninjas during the Mud Run. Various citizens have contributed $1,100 to the All Abilities Playground. Mayor Christoph Jenkins, $1,059, All Abilities Playground. I believe that was your musical deal downtown. Thank you. West Bend Disc Golf Club, $250 donated towards the Riverside Disc Golf Course. Lastly, we reviewed the quarterly Park Trust report and had updates from Conservation Supervisor, Tourism Event Coordinator, Rec Supervisor, Park and Rec Superintendent, and our Secretary. And meeting was adjourned.
Sounds great. Thank you for the very thorough and detailed report. Any questions for Alderman Koehler? Yes.
When you
Yep.
said that the committee staffed by Barton Park, was that a very particular reason, or did you come to any conclusions about any improvements that need to be made, or?
We discussed some possible improvements that need to be made there, yeah, and that every year we do that as part of annual Parks Committee is we tour some of the parks. Mike will give us a little history. Carolyn told us about the rental use of that, and it does get used quite a bit, so, but the bathrooms are 1950s or 60s maybe, so they are being looked at, so yep, we did discuss that. We also stopped, did a quick drive-by at Barton Garden, which looked very good, so thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Randy, has Alderman Koehler, is anybody looking at, we don't hire enough lifeguards? Is that being looked at also?
That's all part of the staffing plan that's been put together, and there is some cooperation with the high school. We're going to be doing some of the training, so we're also looking at alternative guards versus just, recruiting high school and college kids. There's been several different alternative sources investigated. So I think Mike and his department, along with Jess and the marketing, and I think they've done a good job so far. So I think we'll be fine this year. It's my hope.
Okay, I'm just concerned that, we're planning to succeed, and
Nope, Mike and
the other
Ryan know what
possibility.
they need, and they've got their staffing model, and I'm assured that we will have enough people. So.
Sounds good. Any other questions for Alderman Koehler? All right. We'll move on to a report by Alderman Bergquist regarding the library board meeting.
Great, thank you, sir. The last meeting of the Library Board occurred on August 16th. After the Pledge of Allegiance, the approval of the minutes of the last meeting, and the agenda for the current meeting, we addressed the monthly financial reports. Discussed were questions on financial transactions and deposits, along with a donation in the name of Dean Nolan. Thank you very much. Next was the Library Director's report. With budget ramifications in mind, Steve reminded us of increases from vendors for books and other materials, some as high as 6%. With costs increasing and the desire to continue to build the collection, staff will continue to monitor more cost-effective sources of materials. This includes digital options. We are still looking at repairs to several doors around the library coming out of our funds, as capital improvement monies are no longer available from the county. The library board president reminded us to get in any bylaw updates that we had, and shared with us a letter that she had received from a local student who asked that we increase the hours of the library, especially on Saturday. Agenda items included discussions on incentives for library card signups. The library director explained that he would rather see incentives geared towards circulations rather than just signing up for a library card. Budget discussion was next, with salary increases and building maintenance topping the list of increases for 2023. Included in the discussion was achievements for 2022 and goals for 2023. Following the discussion, we approved the initial budget, knowing that there will be changes before being brought to us for final. The next meeting of the library board is scheduled for September 20th.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Alderman Bergquist? I'll just note, with my library background, I agree, tying incentives to that circulation would be awesome to see. So I'm glad he's taken that on. Number 7, a report by Alderman Allen regarding the downtown bid board meeting.
Yeah, bid board met here in council chambers Tuesday, September 6th, 8:15 in the morning. Yeah, it's early. I encourage people to come and participate. We reviewed the August meeting minutes and the financial report and approved same. The board also reviewed and approved the proposed 2023 downtown bid operations plan. Plan includes a list of all the commercial property for 2023, bid assessments. We discussed the 2023 projects that we have planned, and a planned fund transfer of $200,000 toward the 2023 Main Street reconstruction, streetscape upgrades, things like flowers, lighting, sound system, so on. Bid board seeking volunteers to serve on a marketing committee to promote the district during the 2023 reconstruction. There's going to be a lot of disruptions, and so we want to make sure that the word gets out. If you're interested in serving on that committee, contact our executive director, Jess Wilds. Should be more than happy for any volunteers you can get. Mike Hussar, the board president, shared news that the Christmas tree in Old Settlers Park will magically grow 6 feet this year. It's like, the Grinch's heart growing 2 sizes. This is the tree equivalent of the Grinch's heart. Not only that, we're going to have a new treetop star. These decorations were made possible with private donations. And there is a save the date. The tree lighting ceremony will be Thursday, November 3rd, 2022. So put it in your calendars, show up, be in Old Settlers Park. I mean, you could go somewhere else, but you won't see the tree get lighted. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, Alderman Allen. And last but not least is a report by either Alderman Dolnick or Model regarding the Plan Commission meeting.
So Plan Commission met on September 6th, and we had a zoning amendment, a conditional use permit, a certified survey map, and a site plan, all devoted to the same project, which is the expansion of the Carl's Place building at 450 East Water Street. The Family Promise of Washington County is going to move from their current location on Elm to consolidate their operation with Carl's Place. I almost said Carl's Choice, which conjured up an old liquor store. That's why I had that momentary pause. Anyway, Family Promise operates both, so they're going to consolidate everything. And so that went through fairly easily and should not be any issues, is what the Plan Commission determined. And the other interesting thing is a discussion about a change to our comprehensive plan to change land use from industrial and institutional to mixed use along Sand Drive, south of Decorah Road, between Decorah Road and Eastern Avenue. And so there will be a public hearing on that in the near future, and we'll have more details about that later.
Sounds great. Any questions for Alderman Dolnick? Yes, sir.
Yes, Alderman Dolnick, Family Promise on Elm Street, are they going to remain at that site after the building on down by Carl's Place? Or are they going?
I don't know if they'll have administrative things there, but do you know, James?
I don't believe so. Their intent is to move from that building.
Okay, that building's okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Then I'll open up if there's any announcements for the good of the order. Seeing none, having no further business for the Common Council, adjourned by the call of the chair. Have a good night.